Now, another person who loved Rusalka was Pyotr Tchaikovsky. In a review from September 1873, Tchaikovsky wrote that it was a delightful work, the best Russian opera after Glinka, but, he said, it was too bad that Dargomyzhsky was not properly trained, technically. He had a dilettante's lack of the finishing touch. Now, Tchaikovsky's complaint might not be to everyone's taste, but it was the big debate of the mid-19th century around a group of largely self-taught composers in St. Petersburg called the Balakirov Circle, later known as the Mighty Handful, Magucha Kuchka, or the Five. And here we have a sort of blurry photograph of them. This is Mili Balakirov, Modest Mussorgsky, Cesar Cui, Nikolai Korsakov, and Alexander Borodin. What about these five very famous composers, and what relation do they have to Pushkin and to Dargomyzhsky? Dargomyzhsky was considered something of the patron saint of this group. Three of the five set Pushkin to opera. Mussorgsky, of course, did Pushkin's play Boris Godunov in two versions. Dargomyzhsky did one of Pushkin's four little tragedies, The Stone Guest, in 1869. That was his last opera. Rimsky-Korsakov in 1898 did a Mozart and Salieri. That's where that plot starts. Rachmaninoff in 1903 did The Covetous Knight, and Cesar Cui in 1906, The Feast During the Plague. So Pushkin was sitting right at the center of the nationalist composers. Dargomyzhsky, slightly older generation, was the mentor and the idol of the Mighty Handful. In part for his Rusalka, but even more for his final opera, again based on Pushkin's Kamennyi Gost, or Stone Guest. That's Pushkin's version of the Don Juan myth. What was so wonderful about Dargomyzhsky's final opera, we see the traces of it already beginning in Rusalka, his penultimate work. What Dargomyzhsky was to do was to respect at all costs musical truth and honesty, and in doing this, he accomplished a number of unprecedented things. What he did in The Stone Guest was to set to music with unique intonation every one of Pushkin's words. In fact, he was very frank about this being an attempt to replace musical form with an imitation of voice and speech patterns using pitch and rhythm based upon ordinary conversational curves. The assumption, of course, when you write an opera according to these criteria, and this is not unknown in the history of opera, of course, is that sung works don't have to differ from spoken drama in any serious way. If a composer respects the words, then there's no place for the independent development of rounded musical forms or structures. So music is redefined in works like this as a sort of intonational support for the utterance. There's no continuous orchestral fabric. Mussorgsky was thrilled when he heard The Stone Guest. He tried a similar setting of Gogol's dramatic farce Marriage. That's another one of projects that Leonard's got on the back burner. Marriage was not finished by Mussorgsky, but he learned a huge amount